Here we are. It's what is it? It's 3 o'clock, and it's Tuesday, and you've all probably had a long weekend. I've actually spent the whole weekend in Sydney at a hotel, and I can't tell you how good it was to avoid the traffic and avoid getting out there just to spend. The simplicity of that alone really made things kind of cool for me. But I'm pretty excited because we've got not only a client but also a supplier of ours to come on the call with us today. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Workato. I certainly hadn't up until about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months ago. But what I've since discovered with Workato is everything that we've been looking for in our business. You know, we've wanted to learn how to make things simple so we can scale. Well, how do you do that? Because it's easier said than done. And everyone thinks they've got the answers. And yes, we've got the tools here, and everyone's got a tool that they can point to. And we've tried loads and loads of them. And for us, keeping things really, really simple was absolutely the key. And it wasn't until John Deeb, who's the country manager for Workato, reached out to us and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing. Can we connect to some meetings?" that we decided to have a more deeper and meaningful conversation about how they can support us. And I'm going to introduce John now because we're going to have a conversation about how things can be simple. And I'm just hoping that somebody takes away from this. This is not a pitch. This is not anything other than, you know, some of the things that are really critical right now in business is obviously keeping things really, really simple. So let me introduce John. John,
Hi,
we're
Carl.
live.
Thanks for having me.
Do you know what I normally do? It's really interesting. I normally just waffle on and then get everyone talking and hit the live button without you even realizing. But I didn't do that today. Which would have. Can you actually hear what I'm saying when you're backstage?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we can watch you. So I was on my toes. Right. I was waiting for that button to be pressed.
I was just saying, you know, that the whole simplicity thing for me is really, it's the hardest thing. When we were just having a conversation about the ability to when we're talking to people, to just change the things that we've been so used to doing things a certain way for so long that it's just been, well, is that the only way to do things? And I was starting to get to a conversation around you know, the low code, no code conversation, and how 5 years ago it was so hard because you want to create something, you got to write code, and then all of a sudden, you know, you want to create, let's say, I don't know, some brochures and some articles for your website. Well, you've got to have Adobe, and you got to have Adobe, not Photoshop. There's InDesign. I remember the first 2 or 3 years of Meet Magic. This desk sat right here at my desk, trying for the life of me, pulling my hair out with Adobe InDesign, trying to make a simple bloody flyer. All right. Honestly, I must have spent God knows how much time working out how to create a newsletter and whatever. And then all of a sudden, Canva comes along. And what Canva's done is just made things so simple. And I can't. Right now, my daughter goes, "Dad, I want to create a flyer." She goes onto Canva and she's done it within 10 seconds, and it's out the door. That's right. I can't help but think every business needs to get to that level of simplicity.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing how much technology is in everything we do, and the backbone of technology is obviously it's developed in a programming language, but only I was highlighting before, only 0.26% of the world's population can program, can code. That's tiny when you consider how much technology, how pervasive it is in our life. And so it's really important that we don't require coding in order to make life simpler or to automate tasks in your everyday work life. And that's really the revolution we're seeing in low code, no code. And Workato's playing a role there, looking to help automate by leveraging low code, no code as a platform.
Could you imagine if we were reliant on coding to feed ourselves?
Yeah.
We'd all starve to death.
We would. And I think that's the point you made earlier, is that as Meet Magic grows, it simply can't rely on just hiring more and more people to grow. You need to really get your processes automated, and you want your back office to be, really clear and transparent, so you can look inside and see what's going on. And you don't want to hire an army of developers to do that.
Oh my God! Let me just paint a bit of a picture here for people, because I think what you guys have done for us has been really exciting, and we're really excited about the possibilities. We haven't even touched the surface with Workato yet, but just take a step back before Workato. Prior to Workato, we've got this team of people, and what we do is we connect people in for business meetings. So our clients are the vendors, like Workato. They come to us and say, we want 10, 20, 30 meetings with these executives over here. We then go off to the executive and we get their time and we match the diaries together. Well, think about doing that when you've got 30 or 40 vendors, which we have, and you've got 10, 20 meetings for each vendor, and how many emails that's going to take. Because we all know, to book an email today with one person, if I want to send an email for book a meeting with John Deeb at Workato, how many times do you go backwards and forwards doing that?
That's right.
Absolutely. So put that now into Meet Magic's perspective, where our head of operations, Maddie, she's got 1,000 meetings to book in. That's 20,000 emails. Yeah. Physically impossible. Now take that into the next 2 or 3 years' time, when we're doing 1,000 meetings a month. That's going to be just physically impossible. So we were trying all the tools. I'm not going to bag any of them, but we tried many different things to try and get some sort of automation. And I can't help but think, and I'd love your perspective on this, I can't help but think that automation right now is the #1 thing that everyone needs to look at.
It's already considered by lots of analysts out there. We're in a hyper automation world. Everything is about automation. And some of the tools that are out there are great for what we call task level automation or personal automation. So you might look at some of the things that you do personally and try and automate. And there's some really good platforms to do that. What Workato does is it looks at the more of the broader picture. It looks more at process automation across teams. So it's not just you individually automating an email, but in the case of what Maddie was trying to do, is she needed to coordinate with multiple team members through the process of not only just the introductory email, but the other emails that follow, the follow-up emails, the updating of various applications as part of the emails. And so what Workato does is it helps you bring that together, and you can work as a team to do that, and then all the security features and functionality. So it's really about driving that automation built from a team level.
But I think the thing that's really stood out for me, John, with you guys is I'm driven by purpose. As you can probably tell, my energy levels are really high. I've constantly got this because I'm one of the lucky ones that have been able to find my purpose and match it with my passion and live it every single day. It's what that looks like. It's like you're wired and just ready to go. The downside of this is that I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, shit, got a great idea. I'm going to write a recipe for that. And for everyone that doesn't know what a recipe is, it's an automation that you put on with Workato. And I come up with these things where I go, we could do that and simplify that. And then within half an hour of me waking up, that recipe's been done and created and implemented.
I love the fact we called it a recipe. I mean, I think, technically the folks might think, oh, it's a workflow or it's an automation or it's an integration, but we called it a recipe so that it does connect with that. So that, Carl, you do think of an automation as being a set of ingredients and a process to follow to get those ingredients to get an outcome. And that's really what our recipe is in Workato. And it's so simple. Like you said, the whole topic of today is about the power of simplicity. Well, when you're looking at the kind of tasks that you do on a daily basis, you sometimes get into this sense of the fastest way to do it is to do it manually, but it's never the fastest way. The simplest way is to automate. And that's part of what we're seeing more and more businesses realize.
I mean, the whole integration for us, I mean, we've got some tools that we use underneath for the business. It's a bit of our secret sauce type thing. So we don't tell everybody what we do, but we've had to work this out along the way, and that's our knowledge, that's our IP. Because what we do, anyone could go and do it tomorrow, but to try and get it to the point where we've got it to, well, that's going to take you a few years of trial and error, because that's what we've had to do. But there's things in the marketplace today that's coming on board. How does Workato, let's say, for example, the next latest thing is going to come up, and I know you've got Slack integration and all these other things. How do you guys stay ahead of all those the latest releases in things that need to be integrated with? Because that's surely it's changing constantly. Technology is changing constantly.
Well, I think that's part of why we are different, is because we were born in that cloud era. So we call ourselves cloud native. Lots of other solutions out there have morph themselves to try and support this notion of cloud, but we were born in the cloud, like a lot of organizations today. And so by doing that, we've actually we make connecting to applications really simple. And that's the secret for our capability. So if a new application comes out, or new versions of applications come out, it's seamless to the end user. They can connect. We have over 1,000 connectors to various applications. We have this mantra that you can connect to anything so that you can automate everything, because that's the goal, is to really automate all the tasks that need to be that don't need human interaction.
So COVID's still here. I mean, we've got, in my eyes, in my opinion, we've just seen the closing ceremony of the Industrial Revolution. That's it. I think I read today that Airbnb's founder, Brian Chesky, has said that business travel is not going to return back to normal.
Wow.
So they're going to see, obviously, an increase in business. But what it's basically meant is that, obviously, a lot of companies have had to change the way they do things fast. Now, how does Workato help those, I call them dinosaur companies, the ones that have been around for like 50 years and have got so many problems and processes and different applications that their level of change is so much more complicated than someone like us that's just starting off. You might be an IAG or an NRMA that you've been around for 100 years. You've got 100 different services that you're relying on. How do you introduce automation into one of those complicated environments like that? Because it's clearly they've got to start the journey somewhere. How do you pick and choose?
Yeah, people in those organizations are already looking for ways to automate. They're just not doing it in the context of a broader IT strategy. And it goes back to what we said earlier. If only 0.26% of the organization of the world can code, then it's likely that in your organization, that's only a handful of people. And so Workato is all about getting automation capability into the hands of more people in the organization so that they can build their automations, that they're not relying on coders. That's really what it comes down to. And so if you look at Workato, the power of simplicity is about letting people who understand what they need to do. They might need to enter a lead inside their CRM, and then from that lead, they want to enrich that lead and then enter it into, once it's won, they want it to go into their finance system. That simple power of automation that they would typically do using, screens, adding data across multiple screens and multiple systems, they can automate that with Workato. They don't need a coder. They don't need help from other parts of the organization. The dependencies are theirs, not other people's. And that's really the key for what we believe Workato does, and what low-code platforms in general do. Is by keeping it simple, it means you're putting it in the hands of more people in an organization. That's
a really good point, because if you've got people in your organization, do you see this, that they hold on to the thing that they've created and they don't want to automate because they might lose their job?
Sadly, that's one of the bigger challenges. It's not a technical challenge. It's that fear of not being tied to the critical process. And most organizations, though, and most teams that we work with, they like it when other parts of the organization can leverage what they've done. As I said, the challenge is that in lots of organizations, if you're not a coder, you may not be able to get to the enterprise applications to automate them. So what Workato does is it just makes that process much simpler.
What are companies doing mainly? I mean, are you seeing one particular trend in things being automated? I mean, email for me is a big one, because clearly we send a ton of them. Is there something that stands out to you guys that is like, oh, that's interesting? People are starting to automate that versus that.
Well, the interesting thing is that used to be the case, that when you were in really expensive platforms, you would only concentrate on a subset of processes in an organization and only do those. Now that Workato is broader, what we're seeing is that it's every department, it's every process that's available for automation. So we're seeing it more broadly, that it's not just, I'm not just automating, say, the synchronization of my customer details from system A to system B. There's been millions of dollars spent in integrating that. But people are now looking at integrating their MailChimp instance with their lead management platform. That would typically have been done through Excel spreadsheets and the manipulation of data between them. But there's just, everything's up for grabs. And that's really what's different about the Simplicity platform, is that you don't have to prioritize because the cost of automating so high. Once you can reduce the cost of automating, then everything's up for grabs, and that's a big difference for us.
It's really interesting. I mean, of course, we play with the vendors a lot, and one of our vendors, Proofpoint, they have a division of Proofpoint that's got some AI capability for basically reading cameras, security cameras, and logging keystrokes. So if what you could actually do is, if all of a sudden John is typing 500 words per minute, and then the video cameras actually catch him standing up, walking over to the printer, well, red flag that, because he might be doing something that's not good for the company.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that could lead to some sort of integration that leads to an automation that sets off all sorts of different things, right? So that we're going into new areas, I think, of HR. How do you manage that whole thing? That right now you've got disparate workforces, work from home. How do you monitor this sort of stuff? Surely, I mean, are you seeing much HR application?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. There's been so much activity around supporting people who are working from home. And so we've introduced a number of solutions that take advantage of these conversational platforms. So platforms like Slack and MS Teams and even Workplace from Facebook, these are all platforms that really promote having a conversation within an organization. What Workato does is it says, well, not only can I speak to you, Carl, and say, Carl, here are the things I'd like you to do today. What have you done? Or what, having a conversation, we can actually now include applications in the conversation. So you can ask your IT system, what are the top 3 priority tickets that were raised today? And Workato will respond to that by integrating that system into the conversational platform. So now this conversational platform was really meant for humans is incorporating applications and other processes. And Workato has the intelligent bots to allow you to do that. So some really cool initiatives, including things like remote stand-ups. So, instead of having a real-time stand-up where people are in different time zones, you can schedule a stand-up to go out to them via their conversational bot. They can respond to what they're working on, what their blockers are, what they plan to work on, etc. And that can all be shared across the same channel inside that conversational platform. So really simple things like that to promote more transparency in an organization where people are working from home.
And this is key now. I think I can't help but where did Workato start, John? Where's the foundation come from?
So Workato was incorporated in 2013 in the US. So it's a Silicon Valley company, and it was started by a group of people that had been in integration for a very long time and really felt frustrated that it hadn't met the modern technical opportunity of making things simpler. That was the whole purpose around why Workato was started. Integration was still complex, expensive, opaque. and they really wanted to make a difference. And I think they have. The platform is amazing, but really it's not so much the platform, it's what it enables people to do. So, we get a lot of satisfaction from hearing your story about how you've been able to really reduce the amount of administrative effort.
Hold on. You weren't on our team call this morning, were you? Let me tell you, we've got a 21-year-old rock star called Lily Fay. Okay. Lily's quit her university arts degree to work full-time with Meet Magic. I've got her heading up our exec engagement program. She's got a team of 3 now, and she's running around doing stuff. She spent the long weekend at home in Melbourne lockdown running HTML scripts on Workato. So we're talking about low code, no code here. Yeah. This is a low code way. So we were sending out some emails, and they were looking a little bit not robotic, but plain text.
Yeah.
She's now sat there and worked out how to send them all out with HTML.
That's fantastic.
Hold on. Here's a girl that has no coding experience. She has no digital experience in doing this sort of stuff. She's Gen Z, whatever you want to call it, and they just get it. Now, think about that in 5 years' time when your customers are all Gen Zs, or Gen.
Yeah.
Well,
you've summed it up, Carl. I mean, that's the whole point. Is if Lily had to wait and then communicate her requirements in a document to a programmer so they could write it would never have happened. And she
was so proud. She sent this email. Lily, I don't know if you're watching. I'm laughing at you because it's so cool. I don't think you realize exactly what you've just done here, but guys, I spent all weekend doing this. I can't believe how good it looks.
That's
winner.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That for me is when we give our teams the tools to be able to do the job, not only can they do the job, but they can do it way above their own expectations and feel good about doing that. That is really cool because you just know they're engaged when they do that. It's amazing.
And again, goes back to the theme, which is simplicity. If it was a complex thing to do, people will be too afraid to even go near it, to let alone try and achieve it. So that's a great story.
And again, if you're right there about scared to go near it if it's too complex. I mean, this is the whole Adobe InDesign thing for me. I get cold sweats thinking about I've got to make this. I've got to make this flyer or this poster or this document, this brochure to send out to people. And I ended up hiring people, John, on Upwork to go and make me a flyer. I ended up paying people just because I couldn't use the technology. Surely
you knew what you wanted. And you had the vision. You knew what you wanted it to look like.
Yeah,
but you couldn't get the tool to follow it. And I think that's a part of human nature is once you've got to communicate your requirements, that's really hard to do. And that's what we've seen years and years of application development and integration is this idea that I've got to tell you what I want, and then you'll translate that into the technical side of things. And low code, no code really helps eliminate.
The biggest thing for us as a company, for Meet Magic, is we're growing. We've done triple digits. In fact, we've done in our first quarter of this year. So from July to September, we've done half the amount of revenue as we did last year.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
it's just like we're growing. We're doing okay, but we're still obscure. People still don't know who we are and what we do. And getting that word out is the hardest thing. How are you guys getting the word out about what you do? Because there must be companies out there struggling right now, and you go in there and you don't have to sell this stuff. It just sells itself because it's like do this, do that, and it's solved a massive problem and taken a big headache off people's. How do you get the word out to people?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways, but this is actually how we met. Is when you reached out over LinkedIn to talk about what Meet Magic does. First of all, it just sounded like such an inspirational platform, an inspirational idea. So kudos to you and the team for not only having a great idea, but actually making it work. And then we realized that one of the most effective ways to get our name out there is to talk to influential people. And the Meet Magic platform does give us that opportunity. And we've had some fantastic conversations. And it's never about selling. It's always about getting feedback, getting some awareness, understanding what makes executives tick, what interests them, what doesn't interest them. And we are really in a phase of brand awareness. I mean, that's a really important thing for us, but it's got to be coupled with success in the local market, which fortunately we are seeing. But it's really brand awareness, and like you said, people realizing that there are alternatives to the more traditional ways of integrating and automating.
And I know there's obviously got to be an ideal customer for you. What do they look like size-wise? Is it mid? I mean, are you an enterprise-grade service here? So this is not. We're not talking about something that's. And I know there's some other products in the market that are sort of low level, and we tried them and they didn't work, or they broke on us, or whatever else, and that was even more painful. So I guess having an enterprise-grade service it's really important, because you just can't afford as a big company to put things into a product that's untried and untested. So is there an ideal enterprise customer for you?
Oh, so that's the nice thing about automation, is that it is applicable across the board. I mean, we definitely see organizations that have a sort of DIY mentality. So people who want to enable their teams to automate. That's not pervasive yet in organizations. Some organizations don't promote that, but we've got customers who promote automation as part of their DNA. We're a great fit for them, because we do put automation in the hands of the entire organization. When we talk about other characteristics, we customers that are cloudy, that their strategy is to implement their applications in the cloud. They're not afraid of the cloud. Certainly Workato is a cloud native technology, so we leverage that a lot. So that's probably another characteristic we look for. But that's the nice thing about automation, Carl, is that if it's applicable for everyone. And so we do see a fit in a lot of places, but we're probably looking at more at those cloudy customers where their strategic direction is applications in the cloud.
And I think a lot of it comes down to trust as well. I think I think part of the thing for me is I look sort of 4 or 5 years down the track, and I go, is this something that would sit with us and be with us for that entire journey? And I know as soon as we got the log on to the Workato thing, and I started playing around with it, putting my Gmail in there and just adding some apps and whatever else and connectors, and I thought, well, this is easy. If I can do it, anyone. I'm 50. If I can do this, anyone can do this. And I just got the sense that this is something that would sit with us as we grow, as we scale into 1, 2, 3, 4 countries, 5 countries, 6 countries, and all of a sudden, we're in 10 countries around the world doing this. And this is something that just grows with it. It doesn't feel like it's going to have any issues or any problems along the way with it. And that level of trusting for me was really important. And I just don't think you could. There's certain products that you try, and you just immediately get a sense that I can take my eye off the ball here and it will break. Right. Whereas with the Workato thing, it's almost like we talk about automation being good for freeing up time. It really does free up your mind as well, because you've got less things to think about.
Exactly. There's nothing worse than, especially when you've got you guys have got a well-defined process. You understand how to engage both your executives and your vendors. And you don't want to be turning up to work every day with a list of emails to send and checking to see if people have responded. So all those activities you've automated with Workato, and that, as you said, it frees you up to think about the next thing. And that's why I felt it was a really good fit. Carl, I know you don't want to be, you want to be bringing people on who are going to add value through their creativity and their connections, not because they can send an email, 50 emails a day. So it was a really good fit, and that's probably why we really are focused on that broader message of simplicity and putting automation in the hands of everyone.
Well, we're proof that it does work, and I wouldn't be able to sit here and say, we're not the best meetings. I'm not saying we're the best meetings in the world, but we're definitely in the top 1. I wouldn't be able to say that confidently if we weren't doing all this stuff, because there's just so many moving parts in what we do. It just needs something smarter to take over that stuff, and you've given us that, so I'm very, very grateful. I've got a question here from Neil Templeman over at Biden. He said, is there a vertical that presents the largest opportunity for automation, and if so, why?
Wow, that's a great question.
Neil's good. Neil's all.
Definitely, yeah. Again, one of the things that we're seeing about automation in general is that it's so applicable across so many verticals, across so many departments. We have seen great examples in HR and finance and sales and marketing. Those are the three different go-to-markets that we cover specifically to cover off certain processes. But I can honestly say it is a broad capability. It's a capability that has potential in so many places, and so yeah, it's difficult to sort of narrow it down to just one. We see its potential in so many places, and that potential is what I wanted to emphasize to what you just said too, which is I'm really excited for what it can do for you as you start to grow into different continents and across the world, because I think that's really where the power of automation will help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the timing, we're already talking now about the UK and the US. In fact, we've got conversations happening right now. And I feel like we've just grounded ourselves in the baseline here. And I think the growth in the UK and the US will be quite key. And we're ready to go. And I think it's the tools like Workada that's given us that ability to say, yeah, we can do this, because we don't even need to be there in the UK and the US just yet. We can manage it remotely from here to start with, get all the automation and everything working, and then put feet on the ground. So it's actually, when you start thinking about it in those terms, it's given us a foot in the door a lot easier than actually the traditional way of land and expand, which is always costly. It always burns a lot of cash before you know it. So we can do all that remotely from afar. And have the capability. So when we do land, it's all already established.
Fantastic.
Which is very cool. John, I can't help but thank you for coming on. I think we've done 35 minutes, and my phone's bloody ringing. I'll turn this off. Sorry, standard, happens all the time. But yeah, I can't help but think we've done the right thing by getting Workada on board with us, and it's really given us it's given peace of mind. I see the emails and the automations working every day, and I honestly I get a sense of relief. That's what it gives me. If I'm honest about my feelings and what's happening, I just know that things are being done and not being missed by human error. And the human error and the things that get slipped often could be one thing, and it could be an email to a client that's missed. And that one email would mean it could be all sorts of different reasons and connotations, but it could be you lose a client.
The impacts are pretty significant, can't they? Yeah.
And it's just so simple to automate stuff.
No, that's great. And like I said, I'm really excited about where the future is for automation within Meet Magic, because I think you guys will be able to scale and get people in who can really focus on the things that matter, which is connecting more executives with more vendors, which is, and if you do great.
Exactly. If there's anybody out there, John, that wants to get hold of you or has an urgent problem to solve, which can be done with automation, how do they get hold of you?
Well, it's really straightforward. If you go to workado.com, there's a request for demo button, probably on every page.
Yeah, right.
If you request a demo, you just enter in your details, and someone from the team will reach out to you, and we'll be able to give you a demonstration of the platform and take you through what Workada can do. And I'm happy to be a testimonial for you anytime you know that. And I think as we grow, and we have regular check-ins, and we can have this call in 6 months' time, and the conversation will be completely different. Because I'll be saying, John, we've just done this over here. Have a look at this, and it'll be a complete. It'll be growth and proof of where we've come from using automation. I look forward to that, Carl. That'd be great. You're a good man. Thanks for coming on. We'll put all the notes in the
in the post so you can share it around and people can get hold of you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Carl.
Have a good one, John. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.